This is a headline from the New York Times on June 11th, 1885. Now, up until this time, no one in the country probably knew about the boat called Stiletto, or is described here in this paper, a boat that was 95 feet long, 11 feet in beam, and a perfect water knife. Now, because Stiletto beat Mary Powell, the Herreshoffs, excuse me, you can't see that. The Herreshoffs achieved a bunch of orders. But to me, I believe Stiletto was more than that. I believe Stiletto was their approach to enter and dominate the torpedo boat business in the U.S. The other thing that happened in 1884 was that Admiral Porter, who was the senior admiral in the Navy, wrote Congress and proposed that the U.S. Navy start building 20 torpedo boats. I think Stiletto was Herreshoff's attempt to get ahead of the game on that business. So this is Stiletto. When you look at, she was built in 1885 and then converted in 1887 for the Navy. When you look at Nat Herreshoff's design record book, he describes it as torpedo boat type fitted as a yacht. When you compare in detail, which is I have, and I don't have time to do it here, Stiletto with HMS Lightning, you see that Stiletto can be really described as an improved HMS Lightning. And it turns out the Navy ended up using it for the same purpose as HMS Lightning to test automobile torpedoes. The Stiletto, she achieved 26.5 miles an hour on her trials by Herreshoff, and she that's about 23 knots. Now, when the Navy took her over, the Navy rated her at 31 tons rather than 28 tons, and they also put an unusual trial requirement. They required that the boat only make 17.5 knots, but that it carry an additional 9.5 tons of load. So they, on top of the original displacement, they put 9.5 tons. That's another, that's another 30% load on top. And that was probably because they weren't sure exactly what kind of testing they'd be doing, what kinds of equipment and armament they would be adding to it. And she achieved 18.5 knots under those conditions. This is, unfortunately, this is hard to see, but this is an example of the Herreshoff construction drawing. The construction drawing is of Stiletto. It shows, it's kind of marked up a little bit. It shows a little changes here. This is a conning tower being added for the when they went to the Navy design, a change in the stack arrangement. The boiler in this is shown down below. It's called a square boiler. This boiler was designed like a cube. It was a development from the coil boiler, and it's what they went to for these higher powers. During this period of time, there were 3 secretaries who were involved in this period of time, the Herreshoff torpedo boats. They all supported Herreshoff, and they all were visited by J.B. Benjamin Tracy, the first Secretary of the Navy on the left, visited here, as did Herbert. John Long, who was Secretary of the Navy and also became later the governor of Massachusetts, did not visit here, but he depended a lot upon his new Assistant Secretary of the Navy, 38-year-old Teddy Roosevelt, who's shown down below. Now, Teddy Roosevelt really wanted the job of Assistant Secretary of the Navy. At the age of 22, while a student at Harvard, he wrote a book on the naval warfare, history of naval warfare in the War of 1812. This was so highly regarded, it was required reading on all Navy ships. He had supported McKinley strongly for presidency, and McKinley owed him. But McKinley was afraid of TR. He thought he was a loose cannon, he'd get us in a war. So TR went to John Long, and he committed 2 things to John Long. First is that he would stay in Washington during the long, hot summers. John D. Long didn't like to do that. He lived in Scituate, Massachusetts, and he wanted to go home in the summers. And the other thing TR promised him, he would do exactly as he was told. Well, he spent the hot summers in Washington, D.C., but he did not do exactly what he was told. He was a very strong advocate of the Navy. He believed in an island defense chain in the Pacific and the Atlantic, protecting the U.S., and he believed we should drive the Spanish out of Cuba. Teddy Roosevelt visited here numerous times, and the way he did it was he had a home in Oyster Bay, Long Island. Cushing, Torpedo Boat 1, would pick him up, bring him up here. He'd visit the War College, then he'd visit the Herreshoffs, and he'd go back home. Nice way to travel. There were about 8 bureaus and God knows how many boards reported to the Secretary of the Navy. The most relevant ones are here. The CNR is the Bureau of Construction and Repair. They're responsible for ship design, hull design, and structure. Steam engineering was responsible for propulsion plant. Equipment was a minor bureau related to various electrical equipment and not very important to us. The Bureau of Ordnance was responsible for all weapons. Naval Station Newport reported in, the Torpedo Station reported in the Bureau of Ordnance. Also in the Bureau of Ordnance, starting in 1886, was something called the Torpedo Board, and they had responsibilities in the development of torpedoes and torpedo boats. In the mid-1880s, Congress started requiring that all U.S. Navy vessels be built of U.S. domestic steel, and that was a big boon for the steel industry. And because up until that time, a lot of the steel and armor plate was all purchased from England. So there was the Steel Board. And their job was to set the specifications for steel and inspect all steel that was put on Navy ships. Also in the mid-1880s, Congress was very dissatisfied with the extremely poor condition of the fleet. So they established something called the Board of Inspection and Survey, or on this chart, INSERV. They had 2 responsibilities. The first one was to periodically inspect every vessel of the fleet and report its condition to Congress and the Secretary of the Navy. And the third responsibility was to conduct the acceptance trials of all Navy ships and either recommend acceptance or correction of deficiencies or non-acceptance to the Secretary of the Navy. Now, these bureaus are proud. I'll give you some examples. The annual report, the Bureau of Steam Engineering every year said, "It is a matter of pride to be able to report that the steam plants of every vessel under construction, except for X, Y, and Z, are being built to the plans and specifications of this Bureau." Therefore, they didn't really have much love for people who wanted to build their own designs. They were conservative. The example of that is they opined the dangerous low limit of weight of machinery approached by modern designers. We can cut as well as anybody, but our designs have successfully withstood service. Therefore, they were against those who were trying to cut weight. In every instance, the Herreshoff boats came in under contract weight specifications. That was a direct shot at Herreshoff. But they're also interested in building capability. About 1881, they sent John Tobin, Lieutenant John Tobin from Barrington to go to MIT. And then in 1882-83, he was sent to Europe, sent to the UK to do a survey of naval engineering technology and provided a report to Congress in 1883. Kind of did some of what Nat and JB did back in 1879. Also in 1897, the Navy started discussions with MIT for creating a 3-year graduate course of study. That 3-year graduate course of study celebrated its 100th anniversary in the year 2000, and it's still going strong. I just happen to be a graduate of it. I'm very proud of that. And they're building. They had a lot of support for building their capability. They had support from Congress. because Congress was interested in seeing these boats built, not just in Bristol, not just on the East Coast. They wanted to see them built on the Atlantic coast, the West Coast, and the middle rivers of the United States. So the bureaus had very strong support within the Navy. Oh, excuse me, within Congress. This is George Albert Converse. Now, this is the only photograph we have of him as an admiral, but he was a commander here. He was a different kind of inspector. First thing, he understood, he witnessed Nat Herreshoff doing all his model tests, and he therefore understood the basis for the Herreshoff designs. When he was required to verify conformance to plans and specs, he took a different approach, which he said, I wanted to take advantage of the experience and genius of the designer. He understood the genius of Nat Herreshoff, and he wanted to apply that genius to the products that were being built here. And as far as approval of detailed drawings, he didn't wait till the Herreshoff finished them, throw them over the fence, then review them, and then kick them back and tell them what you think is wrong. He would go to the drafting rooms, review the drawings being done with the designers, and then add his comments and understand the comments from the designers, why they were being done that way. So he wasn't really the policeman the Bureau thought they had here. He was more of a person trying to be sure he got the best product, to his mind, the best product. In 1888, the Herreshoffs were awarded the Navy, Congress, I think in 1886, authorized the construction of one new torpedo boat. This boat was built to a circular requirements, only about 10 pages long, but was a Herreshoff design. It's a twin screw boat. The way those days it worked was the boat was delivered without the armament, and that's the upper photograph of her sailing in New York Harbor, I think on a 4th of July celebration. She's in original configuration as the model we have out front, and is not no armament. The photograph below is her with her armor and painted black. Now armament, and she went through several configurations. They used to hold searchlight drills in Newport Harbor, where the battleships and large ships would be mooring in Newport Harbor, and the torpedo boats, painted in black, would attempt to attack the fleet, and the objective was to try to pick them out in searchlights. At one time, the black paint used on Cushing was a paint obtained that a naval attaché obtained in Argentina, because the Argentines had been going to war with Chile, and they'd been fighting one another, and they had developed a black paint that was supposedly almost invisible. I've been to Argentina. If you go down there, they still paint their torpedo boats black. So